M3GAN 2 is the sequel to the 2023 horror comedy M3GAN, about an AI doll programmed to protect its primary user goes haywire, going beyond its programming, ends up killing people, but is ultimately destroyed. M3GAN 2 takes a bold departure from the first movie while keeping its humor and suspenseful thriller-like nature. Is ultimately a science fiction action adventure movie about how AI is more dangerous than originally thought, and maybe there should be a limit on today's technology. A sequel that keeps the original's elements, but is almost a different type of movie. Which kind of sounds familiar. Where did I see that last time? Oh yeah! But you know what? We'll get to that later on in this video. Anyway, let me give my review for M3GAN 2 because I haven't done a review video in a while and more movies are coming out, so I should probably get to it. And I need to post more consistently too. I think M3GAN 2.0 is a good movie. Is it better than the first movie? No. But is it a decent sequel? In my opinion, yes. Just like another movie that half the fans don't agree with, we've heard a million times in our lives about how AI is bad or getting too advanced and how it's going to take over humanity or whatever. M3GAN 2 explores that idea in a fun, entertaining way, not being afraid to evolve into something else while keeping what made the first movie special. Here's my pros. M3GAN is still awesome and actually goes through a character arc throughout this movie. Realizing what she did in the first movie was wrong and not excusable, however, still proceeds to go beyond her programming and becoming more mature and realizes she has to do big things, sacrificing herself for the right things. And Katie's still here and is still the main reason for Gemma's personal growth throughout this movie, as well as the last one, so she can be a better parental figure for her. The humor from the first movie is still pretty present in this movie, which makes it more enjoyable, of course. And I love the action and how they wanted to go all out with the AI fight sequences with the Amelia doll, which is one of the main antagonists of this movie. The CGI is cool. It's a great mixture of special effects and practical effects when it comes down to M3GAN and Amelia, the androids, and which is something that they've also done in the original M3GAN movie as well. Amelia is like the evil AI droid in this movie, and I think it's played out pretty well. But toward the end of how she's used or explained is pretty interesting in my opinion. You gotta go check out the movie. Yeah, I also like how self-aware this movie is too when it comes down to the essential problem with today's society, at least when it comes down to how advanced technology has become throughout the years in our lives. And ultimately, I think it has a good story, and I like the twist villain in it. Now, for the cons, of course, Gemma, maybe just me, but she is a bit insufferable in this movie. Like, I get that her character development from the first movie continues on into this movie as well because she's still learning how to be a parent for Katie, as well as trying to balance that out with her work and the problems that are coming from it. But the problems from the first movie are still going on, like hearing secrets from Katie about anything that comes to M3GAN, and even her co-workers from the first movie even get annoyed by her a tiny bit in this movie too, when they're stuck in a certain situation and they all outvote her on a decision that they have to make that Gemma doesn't want to do. And ultimately, she does get better in this movie, don't get me wrong, but it's just my opinion that she was kind of a bit insufferable in this movie. Don't get me wrong, like, it's not an acting problem. The acting's great and it works pretty well in this movie. But that's just my opinion. Ultimately, I think what makes this movie not as good as the original is that it doesn't really have the same harder passion as the first movie did, and here's what I mean by that. The first movie's plot was about its characters and their problems. The plot centered around Katie and Gemma trying to coexist with each other, or at least try to build a connection which the audience sees and cares about them more, especially with the fact of how M3GAN was involved in that plot. It made the audience care more about the characters because the characters were basically the plot of that story. M3GAN and Gemma's work was also the center point of that story, but it was mostly about Gemma and Katie as well, because that's what the movie kind of started as. The second movie's plot surrounds a problem in the world regarding AI, that the characters from the first movie returned to solve that problem. I really hope what I'm saying here makes sense. The first movie is more or less about the characters, and the plot is about the characters, while the second movie's plot is about the problem that the characters have to fix. And granted, the second movie does its best to try and show that the characters grow together and mature a bit more. It's not as much as it was as the first movie. But overall, I liked it, don't get me wrong. I recommend it to be seen in theaters. I saw it in a 2D standard screening, but honestly, 3D might be cool for this movie too. I'll give it a 78% on the brush score, so like a 7.8 out of 10. It's not as good as the original, but it does has its strong moments though. Now, right after I saw this movie, I realized how similar this movie was to Cars 2. Now, let me explain. Let me explain. So, the first M3GAN movie was a horror thriller based movie, while the second one is more of an action science fiction adventure movie, but still keeps what made the first movie special. Cars 1 is a racing movie, but also about Lightning McQueen and his character development throughout the movie. Cars 2 is a spy action adventure movie with Mater as kind of the focus, as well as the whole thing with the lemon cars trying to reign supreme. But it still keeps what made the first movie special: racing and Lightning McQueen. Both movies take a bold departure from what their predecessors did and was all about, as well as the problem the plot surrounds. In M3GAN 2, the plot is how AI isn't bad, but should be limited, but there's this other AI doll, which is a big technological advancement that ends up going haywire, putting AI in a bad light, only to find out that the Amelia doll from the beginning of the movie is actually controlled by Christian, who is the head of this big technological AI movement or whatever. And he purposely made Amelia to really show how bad AI is. Kind of like how in Cars 2, Axelrod claimed to be an electric car and made All in All to advertise alternative fuel, only to find out the fuel hurt the racers due to the lemon car goons he was in charge of, literally blowing up the gas from within them with this gadget that I don't know what it's called, but we've all seen the movie, we all know what I'm talking about here.
This camera is actually an electromagnetic pulse emitter. The All in All is now heating to a boil, dramatically expanding, causing the engine block to crack under the stress, forcing oil into the combustion chamber.
And how it hurts the racers on the track and they're not able to race for the rest of the Grand Prix. But it ultimately led to the conclusion of how he just made All in All just to make alternative fuel look bad, like how in M3GAN 2, Amelia was created by Christian to put AI in a bad light. The stories are different, but the story beats, or at least the villain, is pretty similar to each other, at least. Both want to use something that's known as not good to use, but then use it as something good until you realize they purposely made it to look worse. That was the main similarity I found between these two movies. It's presented differently until you recognize similar story beats of how similar Christian and Axelrod are to each other. But other than that, I just found it to be pretty interesting, and I wanted to share that. Going back to M3GAN 2.0, it's a good movie that I recommend watching in theaters, and that's all for the video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.